I intentionally buried this truck in the sand to show you the right way to recover a stuck vehicle without tearing something up. That thing came out pretty easy, but then while we were filming a river shot, I accidentally got the truck stuck in the mud for real. Every time I come, I say I'm never gonna get in the mud, and what always happens, I get in the mud. So now I'm going to show you the proper way to recover a truck when you're stuck in sand, mud, or soft ground. Driving in the sand requires a certain skill. You've got to keep moving, you've got to be steady on the throttle, make sure and have that four-wheel drive engaged. But I'll tell you, these trucks that we build, I've got liquid springs on mine, Carly suspension on this one, they go through the sand very easy. One, they got bigger tires, which helps some, but two, the shocks on them. So a big problem with sand is you get axle hop. On these 1-ton pickups, 3/4-ton pickups, if you have a solid front axle, solid rear axle, that torque from the diesel is common for that axle to sit there and start hopping around. And when that happens, that is bad scenario for sand. What it does, it allows that tire just to skip and dig and dig and dig. If you have a truck with really good shocks on it, that axle hop is going to be drastically limited. My truck doesn't really axle hop, that truck of ties won't do it. This one had a pretty hard time just getting through some sand that we've been driving through all day long. So we're gonna talk about how to get this thing out safely without tearing things up. Yesterday, there was actually some people in this exact same spot using chains and a tire. They use the tire as their kinetic damper, but it's a great way to kill somebody using chains or really damage your equipment. So if you don't own a kinetic rope and you do off-road driving, you need to get one ASAP. Whether you go with a cheap brand online or some of the good brands, anything is better than nothing. There we go. So what the kinetic rope does, it stretches. It takes the kinetic energy when you go to whiplash somebody to get them out of something like sand, because if I just do a tight pull with the chain, all that's gonna happen is my truck is going to sink like an anchor. So I moved forward just a little bit to get on a little bit firmer ground because it's really, really soft back there. But I do a couple things when we do recoveries. I don't use anything that is metal. That way if something breaks, you're just getting slapped with a rope. Because you can recover from a rope, you're not going to recover from a chain in the face or through your back window or your front window. It happens all the time. So a couple things I use, forklift straps, great way to connect to the vehicle. We'll get my new one out right here. Got a couple different sizes. I need to get my longer one for this one. Same thing, these are strong, and if they break, you're not gonna get hurt. Second thing I have, instead of using D-rings, which a lot of people use, I use soft shackles, and I use these things for lifting equipment onto trailers, lifting stuff with a forklift. I moved a propane tank the other day with it, but these are another great, safe way to move stuff around. You always know it's gonna be a bad day if you see the old hooks come out. So another thing, you wanna make sure you have something good to connect to your receiver. These are a solid shank hook. You can buy those online pretty easy. I think they're 60 to 80 bucks. You don't wanna use a hollow shank ball, just like a regular towing hitch, because that thing will snap off and it will shoot like a missile. These things are strong. I think they're rated for 40 or 50,000 pounds. And then to get us some extra length, I have just a regular strap here, because you only want so much kinetic rope. You go too far, it stretches too much. Shove all that stuff back in there. I got every inch of this thing full of something. So this one, I think this is a 40,000 pound, about 5-inch wide. So what we're going to do is we're going to connect the end of this to our kinetic rope with another soft shackle. So these things are great. These are probably 4 years old and have been used hundreds of times. These things, you may think that because it's rope, it's gonna wear out quick. You'd be surprised how long these things will last, especially if you keep everything inside the sheath. So if you keep all your contact points off of the actual rope, these things will last a long time. So now we're gonna take this end, we're gonna go back here and hook up to the truck. So you wanna make sure you have a good contact point on the vehicle you're trying to recover, either the rear receiver or the tow hooks on the front. Don't hook to the bumpers. If you are hooking to a replacement front bumper, like a ranch hand or something, make sure and give it an easy pull, because those things are not connected as well as the factory tow hooks. With just the one, you can actually see them in here. So what we're gonna do is loop this forklift strap through here. The reason I'm doing this is so we can distribute the weight across both tow points down here. So we're gonna loop this through. We're gonna connect it on each side. Just like that. Okay, so we've got our 6-foot forklift strap. We've got it connected with 2 soft shackles to the factory tow hooks. If you do have a bumper installed, make sure that you still have some D-rings or some kind of tow hook up there on the front bumper, so if you do get stuck, you have a recovery point. So what I'm gonna do, Colby, I'm gonna stretch this thing out to see how far it'll stretch. Then I'll back up and I'm just gonna give about a 10-foot run and a bump. I believe it's already in 4 high, so you can just give it some light throttle and I'll get you out of the hole. So this thing doesn't require a 100% shotgun run. It just requires a nice little bump, and you can always bump harder. So if the first bump doesn't get it out, you can back up and go a little bit harder. Don't just try to ram and jam it the first time as fast as you can go, because you may actually tear something up. Although it is rope and it's kinetic, you're still putting a lot of force in the front of that truck, a lot of force in the rear of this receiver. All right, so let's get this thing bumped out of here. Okay, so right now I'm just gonna pull forward and get that strap tight, and then I'll back up and then give you a pull. All right, here we go. As soon as I get close to being tight, you can give a little throttle. All right, so that thing came out pretty easy. My truck's heavy, so as soon as I slowed down, got a little bit of axle hop, but it wasn't too bad. So you can see this thing has had some use. I've got a couple little wear marks on it where it's been ran over, because sometimes the people I'm pulling out will run over my strap, which is why on this one I had an extension strap on there. So if something gets ran over, it's at least the cheaper strap. Soft shackles held up good. And that Kinetic rope I have is a 20-footer. So you don't have to have a massive one. You can get one and just buy these. I think this is a 25-foot extension, because you definitely wouldn't want a 50-foot Kinetic rope. They give you way too much stretch. But what's nice about these, if you're in the mud or the sand, unlike using D-rings where in the cold they're hard to move, or when they're muddy, they're hard to loosen or tighten. No matter what the temperature, muddy, sandy, water, snow, doesn't matter. These things are easy to get on and off. So it makes your recovery is nice and simple. Keep all my recovery gear over here on this side. I have 3 of these forklift straps in case we need to run something around a tree and put a snatch block or something on a tree. I can pull somebody sideways or get the winch out. These things work good for hooking up the winch as well. Strapping around rock, done that several times. Use a rock with a snatch block and you can get somebody from an angle. But these are honestly just some cheap Amazon ones. I use this stuff so often, spared the money on the really expensive stuff. This is all top. These are probably 4 years old and like 20 bucks a piece. They're relatively cheap. That way when I'm using them with equipment, I don't have to worry about damaging really expensive materials. Same thing, I believe this is the same brand, all top, and this was just a cheap 25-foot strap. Yeah, if you're looking for top of the line stuff, Yankum Ropes builds some really good products. Matt's Off-Road, who also has a great off-road channel. He builds his own ropes, really good products. Maybe one of them will send me some products one day. I'm on a budget, so I gotta buy the cheap stuff from Harbor Freight. But the cheap stuff works. Moral of the story is, do not use chains. You will tear stuff up. If you are using straps, you can't yank on these. You can cause damage yanking on one of these. You've gotta have a Kinetic rope if you're gonna yank on somebody. It's the only safe way to recover. People think it never will happen to them, but it happens all the time. And if it doesn't hurt somebody, it really damages your equipment. Yeah, if you can keep these straps clean and off of too many rough edges, which you can see this one's, it's been snagged around some rough stuff. It might have a handful of pulls left, then it'll probably be time to replace it just so it doesn't break out on the trail. Because most of the time if we're using this stuff, we are out in the middle of nowhere, which right now we're not very close to anywhere to grab flies, and cell phone coverage is limited. So I was the one driving that truck. I actually had to work hard at getting it stuck just so that I could show you how to properly recover one. If you're good at driving these things, they don't get stuck easy, so I had to intentionally do the things I knew not to do, like stopping in the sand, trying to turn the wheel sharp in the sand, hitting the throttle, letting those axles hop too bad. I had to do all those things to get this thing stuck. Ty's truck and my truck honestly are just putting around in here. I think even in two-wheel drive we would do good. The bigger tires, the better shocks definitely make a huge difference in these things getting around. Well, we didn't quite make it to the river, so now we actually get to recover for real this time. We were trying just to mosey on over the river to film the short on going through the water. I knew better than stopping on the quicksand. I was stopping and waiting for my camera guy and literally just sank. I mean, this stuff feels rock hard, but as soon as you sit, it just sinks down deep. So now we are gonna be pulling this thing out. Every time I come, I say I'm never gonna get in the mud, and what always happens, I get in the mud. Never fails. Easy pull, no, nothing broke, just a little dirty is all. The last time we went and filmed some off-roading, all of the carnage happened to the suspension. This time it's body damage, and it's not from what you would think. It wasn't from the rocks, the trees, or the mud. It was from the film crew. The film crew was catching some nice action, running that drone about 40 miles an hour, and it smacked my driver's door. So luckily I have a body shop. They seem to see me in there fairly often to fix stuff. We'll be patching up that door, replacing some mirror glass. It toasted the drone, so that thing did not survive. It was game over. Luckily we've got a few more cameras, so we're not gonna waste the trip. The sand out here, it's like going to the beach. Sand just destroys everything. What's amazing though is this river right here. We've got probably 15 or 20 trucks that we sell to some ranches around here, and they drive across this thing every single day in completely stock trucks. The only thing they're adding to them is maybe some mud tires. They go back and forth, and we talk about wearing out hub seals in the front end. Those things get packed full of this sand all day long, just tears up those hub seals. So luckily we don't have to deal with that for most of my customers, but those guys go back and forth across this river every single day, and you want to talk about some wear and tear, that will get you. Our mishap today, I think the drone made contact here, put a nice little dent, chipped the paint. It looks like a horse bite. Turned, scratched the glass, tapped the mirror, even put a little dent right up here on the A-pillar. So pickup and drone both had a sad day.